and Colonel Hitchens with the Georgia State Patrol and Department of Public Safety with us up here today. As you have seen overnight, the storm actually moved a little different than was predicted on a path from Valdosta to Augusta, which if you were in that path or certainly on the right side or the dirty side of that storm, it was a very hard hit. The rest of the state on the west side or left side of the storm, even though they were not unscathed, they weren't taking the brunt that a lot of other folks did with the high winds, even though we've had a lot of flooding in metro Atlanta and other places around the state. But we caught a little bit of a break for some parts of the state in that regard. Early this morning, we had wind gusts over 90 miles an hour that were measured in South Georgia, a Cat 2 hurricane. Actually, 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts were measured in Alma, Georgia, and Bacon County. At this time, this has been a deadly storm. We've had 11 confirmed fatalities. I would ask all Georgians, like the Kemp family's doing, to keep these folks and these communities in your thoughts and prayers. We know that one of those was a first responder. When we ask people to stay off the roads and be patient, it's because we are trying to get to people. It is a very dangerous environment, and one of our finest has lost his life trying to save others. We're also trying to get to multiple structures right now that we know have individuals inside that we're unable to communicate with. We'll have to literally cut our way into situations like this. A good example is the Maryland Search and Rescue Team who's here with us. I want to thank them for that. In Valdosta have identified 115 structures that are heavily damaged that we know there are multiple people trapped inside. Again, we just want to urge people, especially in those areas, to be patient. We have a lot of people calling us because they may have a tree across their road and their neighborhood may be blocked. But our priority is getting to medical emergencies in facilities like hospitals, nursing homes, and others that need critical help and don't have power. Georgia DOT is reporting 152 road closures across the state and at least 2 interstate closures currently. I-16 in Lawrence County and then I-20 just outside of Augusta in McDuffie County. We have 1,300 traffic signals that are out. Crews are actively assessing the damage and working to restore access where it's safe. And certainly Commissioner McMurray can answer any other questions, but they are still assessing at this point, so we know we'll get more information later in the day. We are deploying generators, especially in the Valdosta area, to help power traffic signals. From DOT's perspective, some of the northwest Georgia crews, the damage wasn't quite as bad on the roads. They're now shifting to South Georgia, our hardest hit areas. We are in pretty good shape on bridges around the state, which is good, and our port, while it has limited operations, it is operational and has been the entire storm. One thing to note up in northeast Georgia in Rabun County, there's going to be a water release out of Lake Rayburn because of the flooding that's happening. We are evacuating folks downstream from that so they're not cut off from the rest of the community. If they don't leave now, they're going to be stuck there for at least a day or multiple hours, and Director Stallings can give you more information on that. But just be aware that there's going to be a water release at Lake Rayburn. We've had some 911 disruptions, as you can imagine. There's a lot of 911 facilities. Even the State Operations Center here earlier has had issues with power, and we know that's the case around the state. Power outages, we have 1 million customers that are currently, or 1 million meters, much more customers, but 1 million meters that are without power. Our utility companies are working as we speak. They literally started going in behind the storm as soon as day broke. We remain in constant contact with our utility providers in that regard. Georgia Power has roughly 10,000 personnel responding, and our EMCs have literally thousands that are doing the same, and we thank them for that. We have 17 shelters open across the state housing 1,100 people. A shelter in Coffee County lost its roof. Resources are being deployed to assist them to ensure their safety. South Georgia Medical Center in Valdosta, the hospital down there, is without power. Their emergency generator had a tree fall on it, so it knocked out their generator capacity. We and Georgia Power are both responding with an emergency generator, and Georgia Power is working hard to get the power back on there. We've had a severe agriculture impact that is still being assessed. Commissioner Harper is going to speak to that shortly, but we know we've had flattened poultry houses and certainly a lot of row crop damage and nut tree damage. Search and rescue operations, our teams are currently in the field and will continue to be providing assistance to the communities that were hit hardest by the storm. Just to recap resources that we have right now, I mentioned a lot of this yesterday, but we authorize up to 500 of the Georgia National Guard. General Wilson will talk a little bit about that here in just a second. We deployed 250 of them before Helene made landfall. Earlier today, as you know, I authorized a further 1,000 guardsmen, and we've deployed already an additional 250 of those. And so we have 500 in the field as we speak, and we'll call the rest as needed and as requested. They have 20 mobile cut teams, 8 heavy equipment teams, and we're also moving pods around for supply distribution. Department of Public Safety, all troopers and officers remain available. Currently, right now, we're having a hard time getting to places, so we got to get our chainsaw cut teams to continue working to free up roads, but we'll have those resources moving as soon as it's safely to do so. We're moving troop deployments from northwest Georgia again to south once more roads are clear. We're currently assessing by air. It took us a little while to get the choppers up and drones up because of the winds, and then also a low ceiling this morning. So we'll continue to get more information in regards to that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to General Wilson, then we'll hear from Commissioner Harper, and then we can take your questions. General.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. Hey, well, good morning. So a lot of hard work happening across the state at the local, state, and the federal level. As the governor stated, currently we have about 500 soldiers and airmen across the state that are providing response after the hurricane. Some of the missions that we're currently doing include route and debris clearance teams, and we're doing that in an effort to try to get the pathways cleared so that we can get the power turned back on as quickly as possible. And we're doing that with lots of engineers. We've got high water vehicles that are providing support to that mission as well. We've got liaison teams that are embedded in numerous counties across the state, helping to assist with coordination efforts for further response. We're transporting critical supplies also across the state. Some of those missions include generators, water, and food, and we'll continue to do that as long as we need to. And then really for the next 12 to 24 hours, we're going to be doing a lot of assessing just to determine what other response that we can provide to the local communities and to the state. Sure.
Well, good morning. From an agricultural perspective, our team, obviously with our sister agencies across the state, has been very involved in beginning the assessment of damage that we've seen. I just want to say thanks to the governor and the remarkable leadership of our team here at GMA Homeland Security and our state agencies and our friends at the National Guard for work that's been done so far. But there's a lot of work still left to be done. There's a lot of assessment still left to be done. But I can tell you, east of I-75, we're seeing significant damage to agriculture and all commodities, row crops, tree nuts, as the governor mentioned, pecans, poultry houses, timber, agricultural facilities, a lot of widespread power outages in the agricultural community as well, and a lot of facilities, dairies, food processing facilities without power, poultry facilities. We're in the process of assessing all of this damage. We're going to be doing this over the next couple of days to get a better grasp of where we are, a better understanding of where our licensed facilities are, such as gas stations and grocery stores, and making sure they're back online as quickly as possible. My message is the same as it always is to our farmers, our farm families, our ranchers and producers across this state. Document, document, document. We need as much information as possible to ensure that we can get the needed resources and the needed help deployed as quickly as possible to ensure that we can be stronger on the backside of this. Definitely prayers for all of those that have been impacted, the families that have lost loved ones in this storm. Prayers for our farm families as they deal with the devastation, the significant devastation in the agricultural community, and prayers for all Georgians as we work together to get through this. There's a lot to do on this side now, on the recovery side. We've already started those conversations with our congressional delegations to work toward federal assistance, but please know that the department is here to assist our farm families, our producers, our ranchers, and all Georgians as we work through this storm. And I'll be happy to take any questions afterwards. Thank you, Governor.
All right, we're all available for questions if y'all got them. Arch.
Governor Kemp, I know you mentioned about the deaths. Do we know where or in terms of what parts of the state these are and how perhaps?
Yeah, I really don't want to say too much about that right now. They're still doing notifying next to kin, obviously, but I can just tell you it's along the path that the hurricane went.
Governor, we are hearing reports that now that the storms have passed, that you do have people out and about getting back on the roadway who really don't need to be out there. You do have a lot of work to do. What's your message to the public?
Yeah, I mean, look, just, try to give us a little bit of space out there. I mean, we got a lot of people moving, a lot of trucks, a lot of equipment, a lot of still trying to get to people. So certainly in places along the storm's path and that kind of Valdosta to Augusta, really hard-hit area, if you can just stay off the roads, if you're not helping, if you're wanting to help and you're wanting to volunteer, I would encourage you to speak to your emergency management agency at the county and let them help coordinate that so we're not having people get in the way of us trying to get to people that may be trapped. For people in the metro area, it is still very dangerous out there. The loss of life that we've seen, a lot of it has been by fallen trees because of saturated ground. And even though the winds are starting to die down, there's still trees literally falling. One fell at the mansion across the driveway after we left this morning and basically before we got here to the State Operations Center. We're continuing to see that in the metro area, and I know we'll see that in northeast Georgia as well. We also have the potential for flash flooding, and the waters are going to continue to rise for the next 24 to potentially 48 hours, especially on the northern part of the state. So if you're out, you need to be weather aware. If you don't have to get out, I would just tell you to try to hunker down at the house or, limit your activities if you can. But if you are out, you need to be weather aware. Look for down trees. Look for, trees that are leaning over roads. Be careful there. If you're in your house, be in a part of your house that can best take the brunt of a big tree falling on you if you have those around your home.
Yeah. Governor, can somebody talk a little bit more about what's going on at Lake Raven and how many people might be being evacuated?
Chris, you want to do that?
Yes, sir. So because of the flooding that the governor was just talking about, the streams and rivers that feed into Lake Raven, we've got to get water out so it doesn't cause dam failure. And so the homes below have been notified. There's a pretty large community down through there, and everybody's been notified that if you don't evacuate, we don't expect your homes to be flooded. However, the roads and bridges that you would need to access to leave those communities will be overtopped, and so until they can be inspected for safety, that can be 24 to 36 hours once those waters recede.
How long do you expect that water release to last?
It just depends on what the DNR and the Safe Dams Committee deems necessary.
Director Stallings, could you talk more about the flash flooding? What places are you looking at right now, and is this a threat that's going to take several days as the push of water moves south?
Yes, sir. We've got a lot of streams and rivers all over the state. Anything that feeds into our major lakes, as always, the Chattahoochee is a concern. Anything that comes out of the mountains is going to feed down. That feeds to the Chattahoochee. That leads to some of our bigger lakes. It's amazing the amount of times that we have to drain West Point simply because of the water that flows out of Fulton that gets down that direction. So everywhere, Sweetwater Creek here on I-20 is always a concern for us. So there's a lot of creeks that flow under interstates that right now with all the water running, they can overtop those interstates. And so all around Metro, certainly along the path, but northeast Georgia is significant concerns for us right now.
Governor Kemp, is there any plan to visit some of the areas Augusta some of the hardest hit areas?
Yeah, we're still assessing that. I mean, I wouldn't want to speak to that right now. We don't need to be distracting our first responders, our SAW teams, utility workers. So we're going to, thankfully, the storm moved fast, cleared out fast, so they're working now, and they'll get a good bit done today just from getting roads clear. It's going to take them a while on the power, as you can imagine. But we got to get to these individuals that are trapped in homes, and I don't want to do anything that would disrupt that, but I'm sure at some point we'll get on the ground.
Governor, there's a weekend coming up, and it's going to be a lovely weekend and a lot of discretionary travel on a fall weekend football game in Alabama. When folks look at this weekend and say, what a great weekend to travel, what do you say?
Well, I'll say it is going to be a great weekend in the state of Georgia, but there's also going to be a long weekend and a lot of work for a lot of people in our state. And I would just tell you to be mindful of that, to be prayerful for those that have lost their life, especially the first responder that was going in to help save a life, and just be wary of a lot of people that are trying to get folks' power back on. And if you're traveling, just be smart, be patient, and be kind to people on the roads. Yes.
Which hospitals are without power? Is there a plan to keep them running or relocate patients?
Well, I mentioned the Valdosta Hospital. I mean, I'm sure at some point we're going to have an update on that. We've been working on that for quite a while. I know Georgia Power is trying to get the power back on there, but we also have a generator en route. So one way or another, we're going to get power back on there very shortly. But it's really hard to speak to all of that right now. You have to understand, we're just now getting to be able to assess, because this damage is so widespread across the state. It's going to take us a while to do that. And again, I would just beg for people's patience. We are trying to get to individuals and facilities where you have critical things going on, like hospitals without power, structures that we know have people in them that we can't get to right now. I mean, it's literally taking hours to cut through to be able to even get to the structure because of the amount of trees that are down. So, please be patient with us in that regard. All right. You got something else, too?
Kevin, can you characterize what the damage looks like, say, in the eastern part of the state, maybe on like a Douglas, Sandersville, Augusta line?
It's bad.
We get a lot of reports that it seems that there's trees down everywhere.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's like Hurricane Michael on that side of the state. Tyler and I were talking about the ag damage over there. If you remember about Michael, it was devastating to the farm and agribusiness community. I can feel certain that without even seeing it myself yet, just from the initial reports that we're getting, that's going to be the case. We got a lot of ward damage in other places. So, I mean, this is going to be, monetary-wise is bigger than Michael, I would think, without even hardly doing any assessment. As I said yesterday, this was a massive storm. Even though it may not been the highest category numbered hurricane that has hit, a place like Florida and then blown into Georgia like Michael did, we know it's one of the widest wind fields ever in the Atlantic, which made it a statewide event for us here in Georgia. So we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of damage to assess, but we got a lot of hard-working, resilient people in this state, and we have a lot of people that are coming in to help us from out of state, and we're going to do whatever we need to help our people. Thank y'all for being here.
Great job, as usual. Thank you.
If you guys have any other questions you guys want to read myself and from an email, we can try to facilitate those answers for you. We are trying to make sure that everybody in this room knows to get back to work. So yeah, you ain't got to go home. You can't stay here. You got to go upstairs right now. We've got 11 billion doors to help. So get out.